college football playoff. It's not necessarily a bad thing, I don't think, that we have conference champions getting those first round buys. Now, I understand it's not a super popular opinion, but you have to make those conference championship games mean something, right? And what they're talking about is not taking them out, giving taking them out of the playoffs, but giving them those auto spots, auto bids, but not auto buys. And I think at that point we're going to get some situations that I've seen pointed out where potentially Oregon doesn't play anybody in the Big Ten championship game, right? Because they've already locked up a spot. They're the number one team in the nation. Penn State, for instance, what do they have to lose? They're going to make it this year in the Big Ten championship game, and you just get a bunch of scrubs playing. When you're playing for a bye, you have these games that actually mean something. You have these games where everyone's going to go all out. And sure, maybe it gives a team like Arizona State that extra bye week. And I think Arizona State played like they deserved one, honestly. Boise State, that extra bye week, and they weren't the 3 seed, no doubt in my mind. But, this is just one of those things that I think you kind of have to say, okay, it's fine. In the NFL, they don't have this perfect structure. You have the division, so the division championship means something, as opposed to in the NBA, where it literally means nothing. There's divisions in the NBA, but who cares about your division in the NBA? It's all about the conference, right? And I'm worried that in college football, if they get rid of that, if they get rid of if they get rid of that auto buy going to the conference champions, the top 4 conference champions, that is just going to ruin those conference championship games, and we're not going to get any kind of meaningful games anymore. And then we're going to slowly start to phase out the conferences, and it's just going to be some mega blob, and the whole sport of college football is going to change, not necessarily for the better. That's just a couple things I'm concerned about, but let me know what you think about those rule changes. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we finish off our show talking about the updates to some big MLB free agents. There's a couple of them out there that still need to get signed. There's a couple of them out there that are dealing with some real big changes right now in their market. We're going to talk about that in just a second, coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. Welcome back to GSMC. Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, January 16th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the big potential rule changes that are going on in college football as the winter meetings are about to take place. In this segment, we turn our attention to some MLB free agent news. A couple big guys, infielders, still out there on the market, and Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman. I want to talk a little bit about where they might end up and what the news surrounding them is currently. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, January 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our fifth and final segment of the show today, talking a little bit about the updates for Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman. Two of the big names that are still out there, some of the top 10 free agents heading into the offseason, and probably the top two that are still out there, at least as when it comes to position players. We talked about Roki Sasaki yesterday, the big free agent pitcher coming out of Japan, but I wanted to pay attention to some of the two big names that are still in the free agent market for the position players. Pete Alonso is one of those guys that I think is a very interesting case. There's a couple teams out there that are interested in getting his services. Obviously, the team that he has played for, been known for, been the captain of, sort of, kinda, is the New York Mets, right? They went out and they got Juan Soto, right? They had that big guy to come in. Pete Alonso seemed like he was saying goodbye. He had that huge moment in the postseason to send them past the Brewers in what seemed like a big farewell game. He was able to come up big against the Dodgers a couple times in the playoffs. Ultimately, not enough for them to really get anything done. But the Mets are a team that I think are still a front runner for Pete Alonso. The issue is they are nowhere close when it comes to money. Pete Alonso seems like he wants to be a Met, and I bet he would take a little bit of a discount, and I think that's what the Mets are banking on. Cohen is a guy, an owner, that has all of the money in the world, right? He already made up the money that he spent on the Juan Soto contract already, and it's only been a month or two, right? This is how much money that he makes. See, that's how much money he makes. He makes it very quickly. So Pete Alonso getting the money isn't really that much of an issue. I think they're just negotiating against basically nobody. The Blue Jays are a team that are expected to still be on the mix for Pete Alonso, but they're still in the mix for literally everyone. There's not a single guy out there that has any kind of huge name that the Blue Jays are not really in on, right? Obviously, they're still one of the finalists for Roki Sasaki. They're one of the finalists for Pete Alonso. They're one of the finalists, as we'll talk about, for Alex Bregman. They're one of the finalists for Anthony Santander. They're in the market. They're trying to spend money. They're trying to lure a guy to Toronto to play alongside Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I just don't see how Pete Alonso fits next to a guy like Vladdy, because Vlad Guerrero Jr. is their first baseman. Now, you could have them switch off DH and first base. I heard a couple rumblings of potentially moving Vlad Guerrero Jr. to third base. Don't really know how that would go. He's not really an elite defender with his glove, and I don't know if you want him playing the hot corner over there, but that's something that is a possibility from what I have heard. Not really something that, again, I think is probably going to happen, but this seems like just a waited out kind of clock. Get the Mets to raise the offer enough where Pete Alonso is happy, and he should return to the New York Mets, because I don't really see another team unless someone comes in as a surprise bidder and really goes out and gets the services of Pete Alonso. All the other teams that really desperately needed a first baseman are out of the market right now. When it comes to Alex Bregman, I think this one is a little more interesting because he's a guy that's a little more pursued by a couple more teams, right? Obviously, we just mentioned it. The Blue Jays are in on everyone. If you can get him to go play third base, that would be great. And he is a third baseman by nature. The Tigers are another team in Detroit that are very much in on Alex Bregman. They're a team that recently has started to put some pressure on what was the leader in the clubhouse in the Boston Red Sox for him as a team that might potentially swoop in recent days and hours. The Tigers are a team, obviously, that went on that hot streak, ended up making it to the playoffs, winning a playoff series, advancing in a round. They have need at third base, adding a guy like Alex Bregman to help push him over the top. A team I haven't heard in conversations in the Washington Nationals. They need a third baseman. Maybe they're thinking of going young. They haven't spent a lot of money in this offseason. Maybe they go out and get a guy either through trade like Nolan Arenado, or they try at the last second and try and convince Alex Bregman to come in. I think that might be a mistake, though. But the leader in the clubhouse has been the Boston Red Sox, and it will be the Boston Red Sox for quite some time. And the reason that this one in particular is such an interesting one when it comes to Alex Bregman going to the Red Sox is because their best player, the Red Sox best offensive player, is Rafael Devers, and he is a third baseman as well. He is a Gold Glove third baseman as well. Same thing with Alex Bregman, right? So you have two guys that play the same position. The Red Sox are thinking of moving Alex Bregman over to second base. And that is a really interesting discussion because it's a little different moving a player from shortstop to third base. But when you're moving a guy from shortstop to second base or third base to second base, you are switching sides at that point, right? Which is why you don't see too many lefty righty switches. You have that up the middle throw. This is just the way that it is in baseball. It's more advantageous. You got the glove. It's just you see a lot more lefty second basemen than you do lefty shortstops, right? But the switch over the middle, and the Red Sox seem to think that Alex Bregman could be a very good defender at second base, and I have no reason not to believe them. Alex Bregman, a guy that has a very good glove over there at the hot corner, he could be good at second base, but it's just a tough switching sides of the infield. It's a completely different style of defense. He'll be able to be just fine over there, but it's one of the more curious things that I've seen being thrown around there. For these two guys, I think the Mets are going to get Pete Alonso back. I think the Tigers might be the one to entice Alex Bregman. They have their old head coach and AJ Hinch from the Houston Astros. He turned down the Astros offer, and I think that's something that old camaraderie there. The Tigers come in, and I think they get Alex Bregman at the end. He gets to stay at third base, and I think that's something that he would want as well. But let me know what you think. We're gonna thank you everybody. What do you think? Where do you think these guys end up as MLB free agency continues to head down a pipeline? Pitchers and catchers report in just a couple weeks. Baseball season is right around the corner. And thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow predicting games. The NFL divisional round kicks off this weekend. We'll predict every single one of those games. We'll talk about all the big news coming out of the world of sports from today and anything we missed throughout the week. I'll see you same time, same place. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.